Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for JINSA's latest in a series of webinars on updates on the Gaza war. I'm JINSA's Vice President for Policy, Blaise Misztal. I'm honored to be joined by two of our Israeli colleagues, IDF retired Major General Yaacov Amidror, former National Security Advisor and Distinguished Fellow at JINSA, and JINSA's Senior Vice President, IDF retired Major General Yaacov Ayish, also formerly the head of operations for the IDF Chief of Staff. As always, you can find daily updates on the conflict, as well as JINSA's latest webinars, analysis, and commentary at jinsa.org, where you can also find this and future webinars recorded. Let me start by asking you, General Amidror, to tell us the latest about the operation that began a couple of days ago at the Shifa hospital, which was described as one of the command centers for Hamas. Can you tell us sort of the state of the operations and what has been found there?
Okay, I think there is, we have to separate the Shifa hospital operation, which is very important for a very narrow purpose, and the big operation in Gaza. The operation in Gaza now is in a very important point. After the two forces joined together on the seashore of Gaza, the one division which came from the northwest part of the Gaza Strip and went towards the south and then in the center of Gaza and stop around Shifa, and the other division which came from the border directly to the seashore, separating the north from the south, and joined with the other division in the seashore of Gaza. Now the decision is both of them are going down from the seashore of Gaza towards the Israeli border, from west to east. The meaning of it, they are going through Jabalia and Zaytun, and at the end of this maneuver, at this stage, Gaza, north part of Gaza will mostly be controlled by the IDF. Of course, will be we need a time to clean it and so on and so forth, but militarily, the defensive system of Hamas in the north part of Gaza will probably be under control of the Israeli forces. There is another huge effort coming from the northeast part of the Gaza Strip, Bet Hanun, and all of them will join together when all the forces will join either in the north part of the Gaza Strip, the one which is coming from Bet Hanun and from the sea, and the other one which is coming from the sea into the border of Israel. The two main strong points of the Hamas system are Jabalia and Zaytun, and these are the next targets for the present move of the forces in North Gaza. It will take a week, 10 days. We are very slow. We use huge amount of firepower that we have. We don't rush to anywhere. We want the maximum civilians will leave the area and our casualties will be minimized. So it is slow move, but basically, if you don't have all the details of the strip, it is from west to east, from the seashore towards the Israeli border. We don't know yet about the hostages, and what we have is kind of an agreement to release around 50 for ceasefire of few days and more humanitarian aid, mainly oil. Second, We are just at the beginning of destroying the underground tunnels. We have some success. Few had been exposed by us, and we're slowly going to understand what there is there and how to destroy them. And third is the war about legitimacy. And Shifa is about legitimacy. It's not about the continuation of the military attack on the Hamas system. It is very important for us on the battle of legitimacy to show that Hamas use hospitals and schools as shield to its barbarian operation. We found more than evidence that the Shifa was used for that they brought, some of the forces came from Shifa, and some of the kidnapped women and at least 2 foreigners, one from Nepal, one from Thailand, had been captured and had been taken to the hospital. One of them was totally Iranian. I mean, he was schlepped by the Hamas people. He didn't walk by himself, but he walked. He was not injured, probably. We don't know what will happen. We know for sure that one of our women soldiers was murdered in the hospital. We have evidence that they use it to hide weapon systems. And slowly we are exposing the underground system in the hospital. We went with the kind of robot into the tunnel, and we exposed the door which separate the entrance from the other side of the tunnel. Slowly, we believe that we will find a way how to blow the door and to expose what is going on behind it. So no question that it was used by Hamas. The same is about the hospital Rantisi. And now we are going to expose another hospital. It's called the Indonesian hospital. Why it is Indonesian? Because they had a huge bunker underground, and they built with Indonesian finance and hospital on the bunker, on top of the bunker. So we are now evacuating the Indonesian hospital, and we will expose what they built under the hospital, and we will find, because we know what they built. So those who are familiar with intelligence are not surprised by what was found. So we have to separate the war or the battle for legitimacy, which Shifa, the Indonesian hospital, Rantisi hospital, and there are at least one mosque that was exposed today and one school that was exposed yesterday, that were used by Hamas. And this is the system. So for us, which we know the intelligence, it's not a surprise. For the world, which part of it really believe that Hamas is not using the civilian infrastructure to hide behind it, and they don't play with human shields and so on and so forth. By the way, day before yesterday, we published a picture of 5 members of Hamas going. Each of them is holding in his hands 2 children. So we cannot kill them in the street when they are going with children, and they knew that we will not. So this is the stage in which we want to control the whole north part of the Gaza Strip. It will take a week, 10 days. We begin it now. The second is the battle for legitimacy. The third is the exposing the underground tunnels and to find ways how to destroy them. And fourth is the hostages deal, which is supposed to take part in within few days, and that will lead to kind of a pause for, I don't know, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, doesn't matter. This is the situation, and the big question which hanged in the air all the time is, okay, will Israel invade the south part of the Gaza Strip as well, because we understand that the leadership ran out of the north and moved itself to the south. We don't know where are they, but if we will go after them into the south, we will find them at the end. And the infrastructure in the south is as important as in the north. It is less dense. It's the more from quality point of view and quality point of view, the center of gravity was in the north, but still in the south there is enough targets that we should destroy. Statistically, the number of rockets, missiles launched into Israel was reduced to very few during the day. We have now some statistic about the air defense system. We are very, very much satisfied from the David Sling. It was whenever it was needed, and we need it only when we have an issue with the Iron Dome, because Iron Dome is the bread and butter of the system. But from the experience that we gain, we are very, very much satisfied. The same is about the Arrow, but the numbers with the Arrow is very few, two Arrow 2 and 1 Arrow 3. And there was today one, I didn't check it, so I'm very careful. It was published that we use first time a laser beam, and it works as well. So, but I didn't check it, so I don't want to say anything about it. It was published in the newspaper, so I'm quoting it, but I didn't check it. About the other parts of the anti-air missile, I checked it, and we are very satisfied from all the other parts, which are working very fantastic in coordination with each other. This is the situation in the Gaza Strip. In the north, it's more of the same. But now it's not just more of the same from their side, it's also more of the same from our side. And for what was published, I can understand that we are taking some targets which are not directly connected to what happened in the border, because if they are broadening the area, we can broaden the area as well. So it is more of the same, but in this case, it is more from our point. It's the first days that they didn't publish the number of the Hezbollah members which had been killed. The last number was 76, but it is probably between 90 and 100. And for an organization like Hezbollah, it's a big number. Think that it is, 100 people which have been killed, probably 200 were injured. So if you combine it together, it's a big number for Hezbollah. And all of that is in 6 weeks, not more than that. So this is the situation. You know that the Houthis kidnapped and shipped that. They said it's in Israel. Well, how it is in Israel? It's a British company, which part of the shares of the company owned by the Israeli citizen. It was under Bahama flag, and it operated by a Japanese company. So, there is an Israeli owner at the end of the chain of part of the company, not all the company. So, but it is an international issue. If they begin to disturb the Bab-el-Mandeb Suez Canal route, it's a huge issue for the international system. It's not an Israeli problem. We need Haifa much more than Eilat, so we can manage. And at the end, we are focusing on the issues inside Gaza, and what we want is to win the war in Gaza and to destroy Hamas completely. Today, I was asked by someone about the leadership of Hamas. I should be clear. Israel is determined to kill them all. And how and when and so and so forth. It's a question of capabilities, of intelligence, of whatever. But at the end of the day, we will kill them all. So this is the situation in Gaza, in Lebanon with the Houthis. In the Houthis, it's very interesting because the interception of all what was launched by the Houthis was intercepted by the combination of the United States of America, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. And I think it's very important for the present situation in the Middle East and the future situation in the Middle East, because here we are combining, because it's a combination of all the three capabilities and working together under the American flag, of course, of the Central Command. But I think it's very important to emphasize that that might be kind of a cooperation that will take part in the future when the war will end it, because it's the benefit of all the countries to do it. And as you know, the F-35 was used to intercept cruise missiles and drones over the Red Sea, and it is a fantastic system for that purposes.
Thank you, General Amidror, for that overview of everything that's going on. If I could return to what you described as the battle for legitimacy in Shifa Hospital, and ask you, General Ayish, General Amidror said it's not surprising what was found there, but it seems that it is surprising, at least here in America, that there wasn't more of a Hamas presence found there. A lot of the newspaper reporting is sort of making it out that what was found isn't all that much. It isn't indicative that Shifa was, as I think Minister Gallant said, the beating heart of Hamas's operations. So is Israel doing enough to win this battle of legitimacy with Shifa Hospital?
Thank you, Blaise. We are 45 days in war, and I think we dived immediately into Shifa and many other details. I'm afraid not everyone is still in context, but maybe we'll have time later to say a word about it. Remember, although it is 45 days of war, the IDF is a bit more than 2 weeks inside the Gaza maneuvering. Going back to your questions about legitimacy and Shifa hospitals and the others, I'm afraid we are losing again context, because the reason why the IDF have exposed what is going on in Shifa, to include tunnels and the fact that those who were abducted, some of them were hidden in that hospital, and the fact that the hospital is not used only for medical purposes, but also to hide terrorists, to include Hamas leadership, is the important fact. And for those who are not sure, all they have to do is to take a look at the video that was released yesterday. 2 of the hostages were taken into the hospital. One of them obviously is injured. It's quite easy to explain why, but the other, what was the reason for the other? Let's talk about the female that was hidden over there, and DNA of her was found inside Shifa, Noah. And later on, her body was found nearby after they have killed her. And for those who doesn't believe with whom we are dealing, all they have to do is to take a look at the pictures and the horrific videos. So I'm afraid we have to go back to the events of October 7th. And we were back then dealing with the defensive effort. After that, we conducted a very aggressive fire phase. And now we're in the maneuver phase, which is entering the 4th phase, which is, as General Amidror described, the phase to clear up the area of Jabalia neighborhood and Zaytun neighborhood. people have to understand, although we gained control on Gaza city and the other centers of gravity inside Gaza, the area was not cleared. If you are controlling Gaza at the upper ground, it's not enough. You have to deal with all the tunnels, and I'm sure that we will speak about it later on, but it's not enough to identify the hatch or the pier or the access to the tunnel. At the end of the day, you have to clear up the whole tunnel. And the challenge is operational, intelligence channel, and technological challenge. And that's exactly what the ground forces are doing right now all over Gaza, not only in Jabalia and Zaytun, as it was described, but also elsewhere, to include underneath of Shifa Hospital and Rantisi Hospital and the Indonesian hospital. And these are all sensitive sites that Hamas was using against every international law of armed conflict, against those accepted rules for his benefits, as they are doing with the kids and other civilians, using them as a defensive shield. This is the whole story in 3 minutes. That's what we are facing over there in Gaza, and that's why it will take some time to clear up the area and to continue to the other areas, such as Khan Yunis and Rafah, and many other areas that we are dealing with them right now only with firepower. But later on, I assume that we will see some other activities towards those areas.
Thanks, General Ayish. Can you give us some more of that context about the current maneuver phase and how that is going to be sequenced with the cleaning of the underground threat as you described it?
So just to summarize what General Amidror was saying, the first phase was to gain control on the centers of gravity inside Gaza and Gaza city and Gaza city suburbs. And that's exactly what they did in the first days. Right now, after they will achieve full control at that area, they will clear up the tunnels and demolish the tunnels and the other sites that are under the ground, such as headquarters, depots, and many other facilities that they have built in the last 15 or 20 years. That's the idea. While doing that in the area of Gaza City and the suburbs, they will continue to suppress the enemy's fire from the south, because if you will see the number of rockets that they are still launching, it's quite low, but they are still launching. So at the end of the day, if we are talking about capabilities, it seems like they are still there in terms of rockets. And if at the beginning we were fighting organized formations, such as platoons or companies of Hamas, right now what we are fighting is what was left of Hamas in the northern part of Gaza, and that's why the nature of war was changed or diverse into more guerrilla fighting, i.e., small squads that are popping up, coming up of the hatches, trying to surprise, trying to attack the ground forces, and in every battle, in every engagement, it's quite clear that we are having the upper hand. However, having said that, we are still suffering casualties, although, in a limited number, we are still suffering from casualties while fighting those squads.
Thank you, General Ayish. Is the operation, is the ground maneuver proving more or less complicated and difficult than the IDF expected before it went in, or is it proceeding according to expectations?
If you are
Ayish,
so when you are asking that questions, everything is compared to the strategic goals that were defined by the Israeli government. And right now, the strategic goal is to eliminate Hamas capabilities and his leadership and his infrastructure inside Gaza. And I'm very careful, and I want to be very humble while analyzing that. But so far, it seems like the IDF, it's not only the ground forces who is fighting inside, it's the ground forces, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Special Forces, and all the others. All of them are combining their efforts in order to achieve this goal. And so far, it seems like they're doing a pretty remarkable job. Now, if you are trying to compare the achievements, you ask yourself, compared to what? And I'm not sure, and maybe General Amidror will be able to help me with his historical perspective, if there is any comparison to an area such as the Gaza Strip, dug with more than 1,000 kilometers of tunnels under the ground as an military infrastructure, depots, HQs, and ability to move from one place to the other in a fortified, secured area. I'm not sure if there is a comparison to such a complex. And we tend to analyze things, compare, to the past and to ground forces who have maneuvered in a build-up areas or something like that. Here, it's far more complicated. We are talking about 3 different dimensions. It's to maneuver in open area, build-up area, and subterranean systems. And in that sense, I must tell you, at least from my experience, that it's pretty impressive what they're achieving so far. But yet, the challenges are ahead of us, and we have to prepare ourselves for a long period of fighting compared to other, I would say, limited operations that we have faced in the north and in Gaza area in the past.
With your
permission, if I may add to Aish, I think that from my point of view, again, it's very personal. From my point of view, the most impressive achievement is the ability to combine the superiority that we built through the years based on our technology of the intelligence, the immediate intelligence, with the ground forces. That a lot of the intelligence is coming from other sources, not handled by the ground forces, by the Air Force. It's mainly RPVs from all the kinds and drones and so on and so forth, and the intelligence from the national assets, all together combined in very short time, helping the forces which are on the ground facing the enemy. It gives us a huge benefit in the battleground, reducing the number of casualties, and allow us to move in areas that in the past were very costly to cross. I'm graduate of the battlefield of the Battle of the Suez City, and I remember ourselves there. Here we know first time in our history in a battleground which is very complicated with the urban area, combine it with the underground tunnels. We know what's going on behind the corner. And if we are smart enough and reacting well, we can kill those who are waiting behind the corner. In most of the cases, it's not 100% proof. At the end of the day, we are getting many casualties during this operation. It's not an easy journey, but it's totally different from the time in which we had to assess what's going on behind the corner. Here, we know what's going on behind the protocol, and it's made the whole operation much easier, and the combination, the combined efforts of both the Air Force and the ground forces is very impressive. At a visit in the ground forces and in the Air Force, I can tell from what I saw, it's very impressive.
Thank you, General Amidror. Let me just go back, General Ayish, to one thing that you said, where you're seeing a change in the fighting behavior of Hamas from sort of more organized units to now more guerrilla warfare. Is your sense that that is an intentional change in tactics, or is that a result of the degradation of Hamas's force and command and control structure in the north? You're muted, General.
Hamas have prepared itself for such a battle. I'm not sure if they were expecting us to go in such an overwhelming power into Gaza. I'm not sure if they have expected such a level of intelligence working with firepower capabilities. However, they expected a certain kind of maneuver into Gaza. And for that sake, what they did beneath the surface, they have built and later on cultivate a vast subterranean network of tunnels. And we have to remember that very important fact. They prepared themselves for this type of battle. And due to the efficiency of the firepower, together with the intelligence, together with the ability to close what we call fire loops very fast, the impact on Hamas was very severe. And for that sake, they have lost quite a lot of their tactical leadership. Their higher echelon is hiding and not really affecting the battle. And those who were left are trying to fight and do their best. And that's why you can find them popping up from different hatches or tunnels. Having said that, there are still the formations of the southern part of Gaza that are active, that are still launching, and the IDF will have to deal with them at the next phases. It's quite clear.
Do you have an estimate?
Right now, this is the situation in the area of Gaza City and the other neighborhoods of Jabalia, Zaytun, Bet Hanun, Bet Lahia, and the others.
Do you have an estimate of how much of Hamas's manpower remains intact? I think I heard the estimate of they had about 30,000 fighters before October 7th.
I don't want to quote any numbers. I assume that the IDF has its own estimate, and there is a reason why the IDF is not sharing it with the international community. And it's quite obvious that one of the major sources of information for Hamas is the Israeli media and the public media, especially right now. But it's quite clear that they have lost quite a lot of their manpower and their capabilities, and they will have to lose what was left in order to allow us to achieve those strategic goals that were defined by the political level.
I think
there is another reason. Many of them had been killed in tunnels under the ground, and probably we don't know the number. They don't know the number. I don't know if the number will be known, because I don't see anyone who is going to dig in and to try to find it. So when you fight in such a war with many of them under the ground, and you succeed to block part of the tunnels or to crash part of the tunnels when they are in, the number will not be known. It will remain as a question mark for the future. What we try to understand when we in a position that that they cannot maneuver anymore. Yes, they are fighting. They're even killing some of our soldiers, but they lost the ability to maneuver, and now it is, head to head, and we will kill them all slowly, surely, but it will take time. But when they lose the ability to maneuver, now it's only about the question when, not if.
On that point, General Amidror.
Just a second, Blaise, just to add on that, I do agree with General Amidror that the numbers, I'm not sure if they will be known in the future. But in those battles, face to face, definitely our superiority is very clear. Although, as we mentioned, in certain incidents, we are losing soldiers. But this is how it is, in such battles, especially in such an area. And it's quite clear that it will take more time to achieve those goals, especially when we will have to deal with the other formations. But at the end, what is really important, and this is the point, is the enemy will. And it seems like the will to fight is still there. And we have to monitor that fact very carefully. If it is in small numbers or big numbers, obviously there is a difference. But the will is still there, and we will have to make sure that at the end of the battles, the will won't be there.
Speaking of which, and General Amidror, in your opening remarks, you referred to the operation in southern Gaza that might unfold after northern Gaza is secured. Can you tell us a little bit both about what that operation will look like, especially given how many Palestinians have fled northern Gaza to the south? So what sort of room is there for safe haven for them as opposed to maneuver for the IDF? But also, what capabilities does Hamas still have in the south? Is it comparable in terms of tunnels and fighters to what they have in the north? Is it more? Is it less?
The answer to the last question is yes. It is. It's another version of what we met in the north, but it's not like Gaza City. You don't see the same structure. In Gaza City, that was the center of gravity, and because this is the city in Gaza, in the street. So it is basically the same, but probably less intense as it was in the but, and here is the but. When it was understood that we are focusing on the north, probably they used the time to run to the south. So all what had been prepared before the war, the center of gravity was moved, the leadership was moved probably from the north to the south. So the operation will be very intensive there. We asked the population of the north to move to an area called Muasi, which is northwest of Khan Yunis. It is south of Deir el-Balach, and it is northwest of Rafah. We didn't ask the Palestinians to move to Deir el-Balach or Rafah or Khan Yunis, not at all. Probably some of them moved to those areas because their family is there and it is more convenient and so on and so forth. But we designated the safe haven in the Muasi, near the seashore or on the seashore, which is an area which is mainly a rural area, which was used for agriculture when we were there and now before the war. So an operation in those places, Deir el-Balach, Rafah, Khan Yunis, I don't know how the operation will take part and what will be the exact goals and the targets on the ground. the population which was evacuated from the north is not in these places. It is in the Muasi. But no question that more people will have to move from those places in the south to the Muasi. The Muasi will become much more overloaded by people. It will be the only safe haven in the whole Gaza Strip. When the minute that we will begin the operation in the south, it will be clear that this is the only safe haven to which we bring all the humanitarian help, food, water, gas, health needs, and so on and so forth. So it is not going to be easy. Again, the south part is not going to be easy. It is different from the Gaza Strip regarding the infrastructure, the buildings, the volume of population, but it is still be a huge challenge and full of underground tunnels, no question.
Is the various humanitarian measures that we've heard about, like the Jordanian field hospital, or I think there's now a mechanism for aid to come overseas from Cyprus that has been inspected by Israel in Cyprus?
No. It's only an offer. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work yet. But would that be going to the safe haven that you mentioned, or is
Yeah.
that where the focus of the humanitarian assistance is?
No, it's going mainly to the safe haven, mainly, not only, but mainly to the safe haven. We know that Hamas, by force, is confiscating some of the materials which came for the population in this safe haven. But this is Hamas. We know, we knew from the beginning that might happen. I think that some people in Israel exaggerating about the ability of the humanitarian help to change the balance of power between us and Hamas. At the end of the day, it's not the water, not the food, not the healthcare, and even not the oil. It is the ability of Israel to have good intelligence, fantastic soldiers, and the combination of the Air Force, the ground forces, and the Navy to continue the momentum. And the pause will stop the momentum, but immediately after that it will be renewed. And I don't think that the humanitarian pause will make the difference for Hamas.
Let me turn and ask you about the hostage deal that has been being rumored since this weekend. Some people say it's close. The White House then sort of said it's not happening yet. Do you have a sense of how likely this deal is to happen, or any sort of details about what will be included?
Nothing. Everyone who is connected to the negotiations keeps the cards close to the chest, and I understand why. Every detail that might be published will hurt the negotiations. It will be a huge mistake to publish anything, and what you heard, it's between fake news and rumors.
Right. Well, understanding that maybe it's fake news, but one of the reports here in the U.S. is that there would be a several-day ceasefire involved. I think 5 days is the number that's most commonly cited, which is one of our audience asked, after declaring that no pause or temporary ceasefire will be had until all hostages are released, doesn't Israel appear weak if it now pauses for only several dozen hostages? Does this not augur ill for the next few batches of hostages, which will require longer pauses? And doesn't this incentivize further taking of hostages?
I think that releasing women and children, I'm speaking children, one of them is 3 months old, one of them is 9 months old, and probably one of the hostages gave birth in Gaza. So I think that releasing women and children and babies, it's not a weak, it doesn't say anything about the weaknesses of Israel. And if someone thinks that Israel look weak, he will learn in the hard way after the pause that Israel is strong enough to take the whole north of Gaza and maybe the south of it.
Do you have any doubt that Israel will be able to restart it's offensive if there is a 5-day ceasefire?
Why not?
A lot of international pressure for a ceasefire.
I don't see. It's a very good question. I don't see any international pressure, not from the White House, not from the Hill, and not from the American people. Speaking about America, Germany stands with us. United Kingdom stands with us. And what more important than all that is the sentiment in Israel. The sentiment in Israel will not let the government stop.
General Ayish, another question from one of our listeners. Do we know what the total Israeli casualties have been to date?
Today,
I assume
yes,
well, I assume in the Gaza operation.
Yes, if I quote the numbers exactly, we have 1,225 Israelis killed, plus another 388 soldiers that were killed since the beginning of October 7th. Since the beginning of the maneuver phase, we have lost 66 soldiers. The number of those who were abducted into Gaza, as for now, is 236. And the reason why there is a slight difference is because we found one body yesterday of Liel Chetzroni. And that's why we adjusted the numbers. Once we found the body and we identified it, that's why we updated the numbers. These are the numbers on the Israeli side. And for those who are asking for numbers, so far Israel have faced more than 10,000 rockets that were launched towards Israel. And I urge everyone who would like to learn more about it to read our daily reports as they are published on JINSA's website. All the numbers and figures since the beginning of the operations are described and explained in a very detailed and professional way over there.
Thank you, General Ayish. Another question from our listeners: how extensive is the communication of the tunnels in the north to the tunnels in the south? I guess are there tunnels crisscrossing entirety of the strip north and south?
Okay, yeah, no, we tend to call everything tunnels. There are tunnels in Gaza for different purposes. Just to give our audience the idea of what we are talking about, there are offensive tunnels, those tunnels that were built to cross or to infiltrate towards Israel. There are tunnels that are allowing, for that sake, for Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, either to cross the fence or to get very close to the fence and then to breach it. And there are tunnels that they are using for defensive purposes. There are more like shelters under the ground. There are HQs, headquarters, which are based on tunnels. You know, it allows you to walk in a tunnel and to reach a fortified room where their leadership was hiding. There are those rooms that were used for depots. And there are tunnels that are kind of a highway or a way from one place to the other in the Gaza City area and from the Gaza City area towards the south. And just to end my description, there are tunnels that were used for smuggling from Egypt via what we call Axis Philadelphia, or the border between Egypt and the Palestinian Rafah. Those tunnels were used either by smugglers in the past and in the last 20 years, mainly by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, to bring into Gaza all type of armaments and raw materials that allowed them later on to manufacture some of the things that we have seen in this battle and others.
And
So
if I'm
basically,
not
there
mistaken,
is a linkage.
if I'm not mistaken, General Ayish, on the topic of the different tunnels, did the Navy not find an underwater tunnel that allowed Hamas divers to
Yeah.
exit directly into the sea? It's
It
really remarkable.
It comes under the definition of offensive tunnels. Yes, they did. The effective, or should I say, the efficiency of certain systems urge them to find new ways, and that's why they have built such an extensive subterranean capabilities. And this is why they developed the indirect fire capabilities. Before we had the Iron Dome. It's all about the ability of their side, to adjust and to learn about our capabilities and to adjust in order to breach them or to overcome them. It's a never-ending story. That's how it is. And even now, during the battle, each side is, learning the other side. That's how it is.
Speaking of which, maybe to finish up, General Amidror, you just recently had a really interesting article in the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune about the lessons learned so far in this war. Would you mind giving us a quick summary of the lessons that you described in that article?
Yes, I think that there are some areas in which, even before going into intensive investigation, we can learn. We can learn that we neglected and took away from our tools the ability to launch preemptive war. And that was a huge mistake. I understand why. It's not just us, it is America as well, after the lessons of few wars, after the liberal ideas that wars cannot be good wars, and each war that can be prevented, it's better than war. All the very nice words about it, I think that was a huge mistake. And I was asked by someone why we didn't make any attempt to neutralize the Hamas, and I said, think about the situation 6 months ago, that the government of Israel will announce that we are launching a war against Hamas because we understand that Hamas is preparing something and becoming a big threat and blah, 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 blah. What will be the headline in the New York Times? War crime, no, not less than that. Will the White House support such a preemptive war? 6 months ago. What will be the viewpoint of the members of the Congress? And Tom Friedman probably will write that Israel decided to suicide the operation, and the leader of this huge mistake is the bad prime minister, blah 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 blah. And it's not personal. Think about the same situation a year and a half ago that Bennett would do it. Of course, it's much easier for the New York Times to blame Netanyahu, but any prime minister in Israel will go to such an operation and think the operation is like the operation of today in Gaza. Do you see the Americans supporting it? I don't see the Israelis supporting it. So this is something that we have to change and to totally understand that Israel needs this tool of preemptive war. We did it once in 1956. This is one lesson. The second one is about the way that we guarded our borders. We put a lot of emphasis on intelligence, and we didn't have enough readiness on the spot, and we violated at least two of the most important rules of defensive system. One is to be not to take to assume that the first line will collapse We didn't. And we didn't have any means to guard the barrier, the fence itself. And this is why I think that the war will be ended. We will have to build a no man's land just for military purposes, not sovereignty, not settlements, just pure military needs, which will be a mile into the Palestinian side, that no one can reach the fence. Anyone which will enter to the no man's land will be killed. It put mines and so on and so forth, because if the first mistake was that he assumed that the first line will hold, the second one was that we didn't secure the barrier, the fence itself. And that should be, that will be a big mistake. It's rule number 2 in defense. And third is in domestic Israeli lessons, that we will have to put more money in the budget for budgeting allowing the army to grow and to have more capabilities, that we will not have to import from the United States of America in the third day munition and so on, which is very important, that we will have enough in our depots, not everything in the American depots. Part of it supposed to be here in Israel, in American depot on Israel, and you took it out for Ukraine, and now you brought it back. So we will have to recalculate the whole issue of what we have in our stores. It's very expensive, but we don't have any other choice but to do it. There are other lessons that should be learned, and these are the 3 that I wanted to mention at the beginning of the war, not at the end of the war.
Thank you, General Amidror. General Ayish, any final thoughts for today?
Okay, I would say 2 things, although I have a lot to say about it. I would be very careful before I learn any lessons. I would be very careful. I will conduct a very deep and thorough investigation and research and after action reviews before I study any lessons. And I will say only one additional comment. Assume that everything that General Amidror is acceptable and is right. Are we doing what is needed to be done in the north? Are we going to a preemptive strike in the north? Because basically, there is a 10 times force along the Lebanese border right now. So I'm afraid it's a bit more complicated, and I'm not sure that the day after will allow us to attack at the DMZ, demilitarized zone, that we are going to make in Gaza, to attack 2 kids who are approaching the fence. I think it's a bit more complicated than these immediate, I would say, insights. So in that sense, I think there is a lot that we can discuss, and I'm sure that we will do it in the next webinars, and definitely after the war. And I think that in that sense, we have to be very careful before we define an insight as a lesson.
Thank you, General Ayish. Thank you, General Amidror. Please, thank you to those of you who joined us in the audience. If you want to find General Amidror's article, you can find that at JINSA.org, as well as our daily updates from the conflict, which General Ayish mentioned, and lessons learned from previous Gaza conflicts, which JINSA has studied in 2021 and 2014. So thank you for tuning in, and have a good afternoon, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the United States. Thank you, General.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.